Welcome back to One Bills Live. Steve Tasker, Chris Brown here in Western New York. And on the line now, we've got owner and president of Bommarito Performance Systems. Pete and his staff train hundreds of professional athletes, thousands of youth and high school athletes, college athletes, and more importantly to people here in Western New York. Pete Bommarito is currently working with a bunch of Bills guys down, I guess, in Florida as well. Pete Bommarito, Steve Tasker, Chris Brown here in Buffalo. Thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
How many Bills players are down there? Can you give us a quick synopsis of who that is and how that thing got started and initiated?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things we're doing right now. It's obviously a very unique time. We've got our, standard players that always come in, like Del'Shawn Phillips, Vincent Taylor, Jordan Poyer, Stephon Diggs, Devin Singletary, our usual guys that train with us in the off season. One thing that we're doing a little different this year is, especially because Stephon Diggs and me are so close and worked together for so long. I think when he joined the team, they were looking for a spot to kind of run their, offensive system, to come down and just get guys together and make it simplistic. So, they reached out to me. So now all of the quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends, running backs, pretty much every offensive skill player is here right now. And now, they're doing their thing, like just, implementing their playbook and getting on my field and things like that. And, obviously if they want to, after the football stuff, a lot of them are coming in using my medical systems, my nutrition system, doing the weight training stuff with us. But right now, trying to simulate as much of the football stuff as possible. And then obviously we have our usual guys, like I said, even like Deion Dawkins, some of the linemen like Vincent Taylor that typically train with us in the offseason are here. So we were doing what we normally do with guys in the offseason with all the Bills players that we normally work with. And obviously we picked up some more guys. But then, as I said, the interesting thing is, a lot of players just need a place to go to do their football-specific stuff. And I think they told the quarterbacks, hey, reach out to Pete. He's got a perfect setup. He's got a lined NFL field. It's private. We have security, the whole thing. So we have a very unique, great setup for guys to come in. And we actually got two more teams that are going to be coming in the next couple of weeks doing something very, very similar. So, obviously it's a unique time, and we're just trying to get through it as best we can. But most importantly is offer players the support they need, not just from the training side, but a facility and a setup and all the amenities in order to get the football side in,
So, Pete, with respect to, the off-season regimen that you put your clients through, obviously that had to be adjusted to some degree, not only because of the pandemic that we're all dealing with, but also because we're at a time on the NFL calendar where most of these guys are in the second week of OTAs. So how have you kind of adjusted the regimen that you give these guys, knowing they're with you almost 100% of the time now, as opposed to being in their respective NFL cities practicing?
Yeah, that's probably about four different answers I could give you. Number one, most importantly, is, in terms of the pandemic, of course, things have just changed. The social distancing is a must. All my staff wear masks if we're inside a roof over our head. We have our different facility setup that's unique, where we have the physical therapy clinic, chiropractic, massage therapy, neuromuscular therapy, all the medical rooms. We have 14 different medical disciplines here that a lot of it's indoors, but, we space everything out. We open up all the doors, all the windows, get the fans going. And what we did was just kind of set up tents all the way as an extension from my building. It's usually our medical center to my field. So that way, even guys that are a little bit nervous about this, they want to do it outside. So we just got therapy tents. We got the AC fans blowing on the therapy tents. So we're doing a lot of stuff outside with regards to the medical prep. And as I said, it's not just rehab. I do things differently. So even players that are completely healthy, we still integrate them into my medical recovery regeneration centers, because we believe that's how NFL players should train. You do your joint prep, joint alignment, go right into the training and base your training on how your body's aligned. Not necessarily just always your sport and position, but your body alignment. And then we do recovery after. So the other thing is the weight room. Obviously, my fields opened up finally about 4 weeks ago, but We just were allowed to open up our weight room, 3 days ago. So what we've been doing is just moving the weight room outside to the turf, getting proper social distancing and all that. And it's easy for me because my field's right next to my weight room. So we just literally moved the whole thing out, spaced it all out. It's a little extra logistical time, but it makes guys feel safe and feel comfortable that we're taking this seriously. Everybody wears gloves. The players obviously can't wear masks when they're training, but when they're entering, exiting, they wear masks, and we just make sure that we don't share equipment. It's not like, hey, these 3 guys are working on this bench. Everybody's got their own bench, own band stations. So we disinfect everything. They do their little complex of however long what the complex is for. When they're done, they sanitize, we disinfect, and the next guy comes into the station. So it's just different programming, logistical setup, but we're getting through it in that aspect. So we haven't really slowed down the training. We've just made adjustments on the fly according to the government mandates, and we're following it to the T. Now, the other part of your question was the football side. Obviously guys are in virtual OTAs. So I'm just very blessed to have these great facilities, and we just have a lot of offices, a lot of private rooms. So some guys are literally here 8 hours a day. They'll come in, do breakfast, do the medical stuff, do training. They got to clock in, do virtual meetings with their team. So they just bring all their electronics, all their equipment. We kind of get them spaced out inside under tents. They're all doing their virtual team meetings. They get out, they go lift weights. Every team's different. Everybody's doing things differently now. So we just tell players, bring all your electronics, all your iPads, so that way you're not like having to drive here and rush home to get your virtual meetings. This stuff's important. There's guys we have here that are literally doing live virtual programs with their team strength coach, using my field, using my equipment, and we're just helping assist them as a coach is watching them live, and we're trying to assist them by doing different things. So what we're trying to do is just get everybody to do what the team wants them to do. But at the same time, give the players the proper structure, but most importantly, keep everybody safe. So it's not as big of a change as people think. We just have to follow the government mandates, understand this is football time, not training time. But obviously, with any type of football period, you got to have the training in order to stay healthy. So that's really been our focus. We're technically in what we call Phase 3. Phase 3 is supposedly OTAs. We're just trying to help guys simulate that as much as we can.
We're talking to Pete Bomarito, owner and president of Bomarito Performance Systems, who's one of the preeminent athletic trainers around the country. I got to ask you this, Pete. How often, or if at all, do you have direct contact with any or all NFL teams with which your guys play, with their coaching staffs and all that? You mentioned that, you kind of eavesdrop. You're kind of there providing equipment and the facilities for some of these guys to use it, and they have some live interaction, the players and their coaches, or the virtual off seasons. How much direct contact do you have, or do the teams just trust their players and trust you in kind?
It's a good question. I got to be very clear on this. There's distinct rules about this stuff, and we got to follow to the T. The NFLPA has very, very strict rules in terms of, I think the mandate is teams can't mandate what somebody does. They can't say, okay, well, we can't, even in a normal non-pandemic season, they're not allowed to see a player until usually April 20th. They can't dictate what they do during that time. So it's not like I can get direct orders from teams and say this is what we're doing. It's against the NFLPA regulations. We have to follow that. Now, however, if something is on the medical side, we have a lot of integration with teams that have got players set up down here and post-op rehab and things like that. And as I said, that's happening a ton now, but that's normal for us. Every year we get those things. So medical people can coordinate. It's just a very fine line about us getting direct programs from teams and saying, do it. Now, having said that, obviously I've been around a while and I have a lot of friends in this league, and I know just from my basic friendships how different strength coaches like to operate in different philosophies and like things like that. So when players come in without me getting direct knowledge of things, I know philosophically kind of what they're looking for and what they want to do. So, and that's, again, whether it's a pandemic year or not. So we try to be very, very respectful to teams and just make sure that our number one job is to keep them in shape, get them strong, get them fast, get them agile, but not bombard them with tons of position work or their body's just wrecked by the time they get to OTAs or training camp. I mean, football is a taxing sport, not just because it's physical, but because of the motions. So you got to have a good balance of just muscle prep, joint prep, and unloading the joints so the body's not wrecked in the season. And it's a very fine line of trying to get people to do training that might not mimic the exact motions in sport, but you're doing it for joint alignment. You're doing it for muscle prep. And it's hard to do that because football players are passionate about playing football and doing motion specific to football. So then you got to have the psychological side of selling them on, hey, sometimes we just got to do linear speed training. There's not very many times you run a straight line during football, but it's essential. So that, having said that, we got to kind of incorporate everything. So I know it's a long answer to your question, but you got to be very, very careful with direct communication versus just training guys that know and people respect the fact that you know what you're doing and get them back healthy. Again, even in a non-pandemic time, because we're usually with these guys from January till April 20th until OTAs anyway. So it's kind of the same thing. It's just more extended this year. I mean, I was telling you the other day, it's very similar to what we experienced during the 2011 lockout. Guys were with us from January until late August. There was nothing during that year. So we just kind of had to have our different phases and simulate, okay, this is the time we're doing more football motions. Now we got to back off and do more athletic training, things like that.
And Pete, just one last thing for me. You mentioned the Bills players that are down there. Who was kind of the ringleader that kind of set this up and worked most in conjunction with you to get this organized?
I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously the quarterbacks called me and said, hey, Stephon Diggs told us to call you, So as I said, I think,
yeah.
Diggs is already here. Singletary's already here. A lot of these guys, John Brown's been my guy. He lives down here. A lot of these guys live here, train here, and stay here in the offseason. And I think it was a good way for people to get away. It's easy to find safe housing down here. My facility is very accessible. It's in a safe neighborhood. And I think everybody just likes the fact that I have a fully lined NFL field that's completely secluded and private. There's heavy security to even get on this campus here. And there's nobody here except for me and my clients. So I think it was just a good way for them to say, okay, let's go do this, but let's do it at a safe, private environment where we can just do our thing and not, try to go to a local park and have tons of people there and are we going to get kicked off or not. I mean, it's great weather down here, great environment. So I think Diggs kind of put it in people's ear and everybody's like, yeah, let's do it. And then we went from there.
Pete, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you taking time out, and we're so interested in the stuff that's going on with these guys away from us. We don't get to see them as often as we would normally. Thanks for taking care of our guys, and good luck to you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me on.
Pete Bomarito, owner and president of Bomarito Performance Systems.